Welcome to the Adult Algorithm Podcast, the How to Adult podcast.
First of all, if you don't have a planner, get one. I don't know
This
how
ain't
you
high school.
I don't know how you survive.
There will be no sugarcoating whatsoever.
This is the hashtag No Sugarcoating podcast.
And I'm your host, Jasmine Johnson.
You're like the best influence and the worst influence all in one.
Are you ready to grow into your potential? What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Adult Algorithm, the How to Adult podcast with your host, Jasmine Johnson. Yes, I am filming on my bed. You want to know why? Because it is midterm week and I am physically here, but definitely not mentally here. So, because all of my laundry is on my desk chair and all near my desk, I definitely did not feel like moving them when I was just in the middle of a, homework assignment that probably should only take me an hour or so, but it's taken me almost 3. So that's how my week's going. I hope everyone is doing well. Hopefully you're doing better than I am, and I hope you're doing well in, whatever kind of week you're having. I know we did not have an episode last week. I'm so sorry, but I figured we would take a break in between topics and kind of get really excited for this next topic of the month, which is Money March. I'm so excited to start this because it means a lot to me, not only as an accounting major, but somebody who wants to learn more about, how to make their future successful, especially with their finances. And today's topic definitely falls under that, especially during this time of year, and that is taxes. Yeah, I know. It sounds boring, but before you click off, you have to know about taxes because guess what? You gotta do them. It's a part of life. It's a part of living in the U.S. If you live outside the U.S., everyone pays taxes everywhere. So that didn't even make sense. My bad. You already know where my head's at. Anyways, I'm really excited about this episode. I've invited a guest on who is also an accounting major in the College of Business at URI, who has a lot of insight about taxes because, well, he'll explain in a couple minutes why he's even qualified to be talking about this topic in general. And for our small business of the week, it's even better because our guest is the person who runs this small service, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear about it. So let's hear about our small service of the week. Want to start your own business but don't know how to register one, hire employees, or pay taxes? Perhaps you need emergency funding or graphic design work or require licenses and certifications to run your business. ABC Consulting provides you with a free service to make your ambition a possibility. We provide a one-on-one consultation about any legal business issues you may have. ABC Consulting can have any legal business procedure finished in less than an hour and is a non-profit organization, so it's completely free. Contact us for any inquiries or consultations. To get in contact with Doug, contact him on Instagram at Doug Roosey, DougRoosey. So with that being said, please go and support him and his small business /service. It would mean the world to me, and thank you so much for everyone that supported us this far. If you're new, hi, welcome. We are the Adult Algorithm Podcast, teaching you everything that our schools definitely failed to teach us. And one of the topics is taxes. When do you learn about taxes? Unless you're in a financial management class, and not many high schools, I feel like, offer a financial management class, and usually it's about budgeting more than taxes. So if you're a student, even if you're not a student, please listen to this episode. I know, but I was going to say, I know it can sound boring, but I feel like me and Doug are not boring, okay? We're nerds, we're money nerds, we're tax nerds, but still, please take a listen. Let me know what you think of it. Please let me know your feedback. I would love to hear it. Leave a review, please, and help us so we can grow, and make better episodes for you guys. So with that being said, let's get into episode 21.
Hi, everybody. My name is Doug Roosevelt, and I'm a junior accounting major at the University of Rhode Island. And I have experience in taxation because I volunteer for the IRS VITA program, and that's doing tax for low income and elderly people, and just also providing some type of basic tax education to them. So
Awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on, Doug. I'm really glad that you want to share your experiences with our listeners, especially because a lot of college students don't do their own taxes and don't know the benefit of, some of the deductions and credits that they could be getting as students. So I'm really excited that you could come on and talk about it with us today.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like it's something that every college student should know because it does help them out in the end. But it's also a really good investment because the older you get, the more opportunities for like different types of tax stuff you have. And like it's good to know that like before it happens. So you're always prepared, you know.
Exactly. And it's good for high school students too, because once they turn 18, they could be eligible to claim themselves and they don't even know it. So I'm really excited. I guess the first question is what made you want to become, a volunteer tax preparer?
Well, so like some business students go into business because they want the more like social aspect, I guess you wanted to say, like they watch like movies about business or something and they have like this kind of glamorous view about like what they might expect. But
Mhm.
I'm more interested in the technical aspects of business, and like you can't get more technical than taxes, I mean. So I really like tax for that reason, and I really like the aspect of like navigating through rules. It's almost like navigating through a puzzle, you know, it's like solving a puzzle. So I wanted to really give back to the community or do something for the public in that kind of way, because another big passion of mine is government and civil service work. So
Yeah.
I thought like, how can you combine those two variables to make something and contribute to the people? And so I just looked it up, like financial services on the internet. And so like I found the VITA program and I was like, this is perfect. And like I didn't know it was gonna happen because of coronavirus, but thankfully there's like adjustments with social distancing and like pickups and whatnot. So like thankfully it's being done. But to serve the community through something technical is my main reason. I really think I like the technical aspect because like there's a certain barrier of entry when it comes to like technical material. And I really like the fact that like I can make that more accessible, because another big interest of mine is accessibility. Like I want to make hard, complicated, or like inaccessible things more accessible to people who might not be familiar with it.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I volunteer for the VITA program.
Yeah. So do you have like a busy like couple months during this time of year, or are you doing like all year long? Like how many people are you helping? What's the whole lowdown of your like schedule?
Yeah, so it's kind of unique because the VITA program isn't like you go into an IRS center and like you just take people and do their taxes. Instead, is you work with a nonprofit organization in Rhode Island that's like a subsidiary of the program. So like the administration style or like how they do their taxes or how they even govern like the power dynamic all depends on what organization you do it with. So I work in an area called the Genesis Center, which is a place in kind of the Northern Province area. And it's an education center for like adult education where they can become like CNAs, but it's also a child education where like adults can send their children to daycare if they don't have the time to like take care of them during the day. And so like we work 3 times a week usually, and it's only during tax season. But
Okay.
if there's an extension, then like we work more.
Mhm.
So basically during tax season you work, and then during the off time you study and you take recertify yourself, because if you're not certified you can't file, and so you have to study all the new material and all the tax changes that occur, and then that's when you re-enter the VITA program again and do it. So you have to keep getting certified every single year, and so you have to know what's really changing in the tax like law.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, do you think it's changed since Trump has left office and now Biden has taken over like this year?
Yeah, so really Biden hasn't, I don't think, passed any type of major tax legislation yet, but
Okay.
I've heard stories of like the bills being drafted in like Congress to go to the House and Senate. But what I can say is that when Trump took president, he passed this massive tax act called the American Opportunities and Jobs Act or whatever, and it was passed in 2018. And like normally it would have never passed. Like it just wasn't going to happen. But during that time, it was really strategic for Republicans because they had control of the House and Senate. And like, so the bill like went through the House, went through the Senate, Trump signed it, and it went into law. Like that's really rare to happen, but it did. And so that created a lot of tax changes that people are currently navigating through. So like they added a lot of like different deductions. They also removed a lot. They reduced the corporate tax rate by a significant margin. But another thing that changed in terms of tax law, especially this year, which is kind of unique, is the coronavirus. So that actually added a lot more support in terms of taxes. So that's another interesting thing to read about and learn.
Wow. That's really interesting because one, not a lot of people know that, right?
Yeah,
Especially coming up, I feel like our generation really pushed the voting, especially this past year.
for
They
sure.
push the voting on the outer level, but they don't know what's on the inside of like all of the things like that, all the laws that have gone through in the past couple of years. Some people just vote because their parents vote for one person, but do
Yeah.
you know what is happening behind the scenes? So that's really, really important that you mentioned that because not a lot of people know that.
Well, it's interesting because like I can't say about other laws because I'm not a poli sci major and I'm not experienced with like American politics, like I'm not a civics person, but like one thing I can say is that the process of getting a law passed, especially such a massive like law involving many taxes, is that like it's not like Joe Biden becomes president, then you just pass the law and like there you go, like everything's all happy and like rainbows and sunshine and smell of coffee and like cute babies, like like basically the way a law has to pass is like it has to be well like drafted and it has to be a bill everybody agrees on. So it has to go through the House, which they have to vote majority on. Then it has to go through the Senate, which the majority goes on. Then the president has to approve it. And if the president doesn't approve it, it has to go through the entire process in the House again to pass. But the thing that people don't know is that like that takes a long time, like sometimes years, sometimes a decade. Like there are some laws like the Civil Rights Act, for example, like that took like decades of debating and rejections to get that passed. So like it's incredibly difficult to get a change just enacted. But I think what people are doing in terms of like trying to get a higher voter turnout or really trying to change the atmosphere of politics, I think that's a really great thing people are doing. And it's very grassroots, which I like, right? Like no one's like, there's no super PACs or anything. Like we're just encouraging each other to vote like right away. So that's a great thing. Yeah.
How long have you been doing your own taxes for?
So I've been doing it since high school. So, but it's also like for me, I think there's more of an incentive to do my own taxes because basically like there's a W-2 employee and there's a 1099 employee. And so I'm a 1099 employee. And that essentially means like I'm considered independently working where I'm like an independent contractor. So from the legal code, I don't work for an employer. Like this income is all classified as other income.
Okay.
But there's many pros and cons to that. And like the cons is that like when you're a W-2 employee, they automatically hold back all your taxes called withholdings, right? Doesn't happen to me. So like you have to pay a fair share of it at the end. But another big thing is when you're a traditional W-2 employee, like if you worked at a company like let's say Walmart, they would like pay half of your Social Security or half of your Medicare tax. But the thing is that doesn't happen with a 1099 employee because there's no employer to pay it. So you have to pay double tax, which sounds bad, but there's also a lot of benefits. So like the thing is when you're a 1099 employee, there's a lot more room for credits and deductions, right? So deductions remove your taxable income, so it reduces your tax liability. Credits take away amounts from your taxes, which also take away your taxes. So like if you're a 1099 employee, there's a lot more room to take advantage of these like specific incentives that the IRS offers you. So a big one is the American Opportunity Tax Credit, which is if you're a full-time college student, right, you get a tax credit up to $2,500. But that's not a credit because it goes up to a refund because $1,000 of that benefit can be directly given back to you. Like that's basically like you're getting money or it's incentivizing for you to receive money. So that's an advantage you can take as a 1099 employee because if you make a certain amount of income as a 1099, you're ineligible to be qualified under a dependent of a parent. So like you can qualify for that. But another thing is like mileage, like the time you take to commute to work, the mileage you spend, that's also a deduction you can take. And another deduction you can take is actually the tax burden you pay, which you can take up half off. So like there's implicit benefits to being that kind of employee. And I wanted to take advantage of that because why wouldn't I? So I've been doing that since high school because I've been in 1099 since high school. But it's also not a situation a lot of students are thrown into. So totally understand if students aren't willing to do that. Yeah.
Definitely. I was gonna ask for the next question, like, what percentage of college students do you see doing their own taxes? Because a lot of them, especially this past year, have realized, oh, maybe I probably should start doing my own taxes. But a lot of them before coronavirus really didn't know where their W-2s were going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't say the exact percentage, but
Right, yeah.
yeah. But
Interviews
I'd say
every college student.
definitely a very small amount of people I think do their own taxes because it is reasonable, right? Like I'm not saying like it's like incompetent for them to do that because you probably qualify under a parent as a dependent, right? And if that's the case, like I'm sure they're gonna do their taxes for you because like I mean, hopefully the parents care and like what parent wouldn't do that. But like people really need to understand like it's important to do your own taxes and not just because you have to grow independent, like because there are some massive financial consequences you can receive if you don't do your taxes, especially this year. So for example, like let's say you didn't receive a stimulus check as a student, you would think, well, I just don't qualify for that, end of story, right? Wrong, because a lot of students actually did qualify for the stimulus check, but the IRS for some reason just forgot to send them out. Like they just didn't. And that was actually my example because the first stimulus check, $1,200, I didn't get that. But see, if you file your own taxes, you can tell that to the IRS when you're filing your taxes, and you can get that back as a refund. That's a huge
I
one.
did see that this year.
Yeah. Well, see, yeah, I'm not sure. Like I used online tax filing. It's called Tax Free USA. It's completely free. But if you did like H&R Block or TurboTax, like hopefully they asked you. But yeah, okay, that's good. And so if you answer no, then like you're getting a refund on that, which is like you're getting your stimulus check basically. So like you have to file it because if you don't, you're losing out on basically like $2,000. Like what are you doing?
Yeah.
But another thing that like I always tell people is that like people are like, it's fine. Like my parents do it, like whatever, they'll handle my finances. But like what I tell them is like it like, do you really want that for yourself?
Right.
Because like, isn't it important to like, don't you want to go into your bank account and be in control of your own balance? Like, don't you want to be in control of your own finances? And more importantly, don't you want to have like agency with your like life, which finances is the baseline to do anything with? So like if you're not doing any of this financial stuff on your own, like, and you don't even know how to open like a TurboTax account or like enter in information, like you're treading on some thin ice, like, because when you don't no longer become a dependent, like you are not going to be able to maximize your credits and deductions, and like you're losing out on a lot of money, you're losing out on a lot of opportunity. And more importantly, you're gonna completely like screw yourself over. So like it's good to get acclimated now. Like now is better than later, right? So like I always tell them like do it now, not later. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And even if your parents do claim you should be doing it on your own anyway. Like it doesn't even exactly. So
Yeah.
what are the things that qualify someone to claim themselves?
Well, basically the main point is like you have to provide more than 50% of your own support. Yeah. So like that doesn't make you qualified as dependent, right? So like to any audience that's watching, like if you know what a dependent is, basically someone like who is supported by another person. So like most college students are supported by their parents in terms of like living and housing and just cost. So like they're dependents. But some students are independent and like they pay for a lot of their own expenses. And if it's more than 50%, you're your own person. And that means like you got to file on your own, and that means you got to navigate through that. And I understand that the amount of people who file under that is very like niche and small, but like it definitely exists. So like to those people, it's important.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. When I turned 18, because I had been technically moved out of my parents' house since I was 17. I was able to claim myself as like my own, like as my own dependent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, it's like when I had an episode on growing up fast, you learn how to right when you get a job, you
Yeah.
learn how to save, you learn how to put your income towards what you need to. So since I did it, TD was a lifesaver because once I went to college, TD was like right in the middle of my like 6 months out of my parents' house. So I was like, all right, so the next tax season I claimed myself, and my parents did not like it, but it would have been illegal if they tried to claim me.
Yeah.
I had been paying 50% of more than 50% of my own, weight. So that was a big debate. And I'm not the only one of my friends that like had me calling myself my own friend. I'm not the only one out of my friend group that, has had that issue.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't it just feel like kind of good just to do it on your own? Like,
it's great.
yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you think that like students' biggest mistakes are when they're filing their own taxes?
Biggest mistakes? I'm not sure. Like, because I've never seen anybody else file their taxes like in person ever. Like, I think you're maybe the first 10 people I've met that actually like does their own taxes and like grasps like what they're doing. But I think the biggest mistake is not doing it on not doing it on their own, honestly.
Not
I
doing
really think that's the biggest mistake. Because even if you like mess up a few years, like right now you're in college, like there's time to recover and like you still have a safety net, like for most people. So like even if you make a mistake in like filing correctly or just forget to claim some kind of credit or deduction, you're young, like it's okay. Like you have like setbacks that you can recover from.
Mhm.
So like if you're gonna make a mistake, like now's the best time to make it. But when you're an adult and you're renting, you have a full-time job, like things are hectic. Like if you make a mistake then, that mistake is gonna cost you a lot more than the mistake is gonna cost you now.
Yeah.
So like do it now. And like I just don't see the point of like staying coddled to the parents because like that's not gonna encourage any type of growth. And like what are you gonna accomplish from that? Because like you're basically damaging yourself, right? It's like when you cheat on an exam, like you're not really cheating on the exam, you're cheating yourself, like you're cheating your future. So I think that by not being independent with financials, like it's basically a case of self-sabotage. And why would anyone want to do that, But of course, no one like thinks like in hindsight, because like in the future you figure out, but now it's like there's no repercussion. And if only like now it's like kind of comfy. So like I think that warm like financial blanket like really makes people like snuggle in, but like yeah, get comfortable with being cold, okay? Yeah.
Get comfortable with being cold.
Yeah.
Not accurate. Love it. So can you explain the difference between like taking the standard deduction or like itemizing?
Yeah, of course. So like for any student, right, they make an income and basically the IRS, I guess you can say they're altruistic or something, or they want to support the people. The motive doesn't matter. The point is, like, if you make a certain amount of income, the IRS will forgivingly give you a certain amount of taxes that you won't get taxed at, right? So, like, if you made like $100 in taxes, you're not going to get taxed on the $100. You're going to get taxed on like $80 or $90. Depends on how much income you make. And the amount that you don't get taxed on, that's a deduction, right? Or like a standard deduction or itemized. So a standard deduction is just like a specific number for that the IRS sets depending on like your family status, how many dependents you have, how many income you make, like a lot of different factors that become a certain number. And it just gets subtracted from your total income, and which reduces your tax. And it's that simple. And most people around us are probably gonna take the standard deduction, right? Because they don't have a lot of like financial variables. But the itemized deduction is a little more complicated. And so it just means, right, like you can select any type of deduction you want. So like instead of the IRS choosing the specific designated number for you, you put in all the deductions you want for certain qualified stuff, right? So you can't just arbitrarily write down like 99999 and it's like for tax. Woo! But like you can write down like qualified stuff. So like a massive one that I think a lot of people will do in their future is mortgage payments or mortgage interest payments. That's a massive itemizing thing. Charitable contributions, if you contribute to a charity, that's also something you can itemize. So like if you have more itemized, like if you have a lot of qualified expenses, you can itemize and pay arguably even less tax. But I think for the majority of college students, the standard deduction is really the most important part. But I must also stress that if you're a 1099 employee, you basically have zero standard deduction. So you pretty much always have to itemize. I know it doesn't apply to basically anyone, but just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, just in case, just in case.
Yeah, of course.
Love that. What are some other credits and deductions that students don't realize they can claim? I know you talked about a couple earlier, but were there any others that you were thinking of?
Let me think. Like, okay, a huge one I think right now is due to the coronavirus, they made some kind of like change to the tax code. And like, so basically like if you itemize, you can't take the standard deduction. If you take the standard deduction, you can't itemize. And most people are going to take the standard, right? So like you would think that's the cap. Like there's nothing more you can add. That's just a number that you're going to have to comply with. Well, not necessarily true, because there's a lot of deductions you can add despite the fact that you're standardizing. Even though you're not technically allowed to add more stuff, you can. Like the IRS creates an exception because they're trying to create an incentive for you to do it so you can reduce your tax liability. So a huge one is after the coronavirus happened, this year, you can deduct up to $300 of any charitable contribution you made, even if you're taking the standard deduction. So like if any person has donated anything, usually cash, to a church, an organization, some type of support service, anything, even a university, whatever it is, you can deduct that from your taxes. $300, like that's not a small amount. So like that's a huge one you got to take advantage of.
Wow.
Another for college kids, 1090 AT. Okay, so every single college, right? This is something a lot of people don't know about, which is so frustrating. Like 1090 AT, it lists all the education expenses you did that are qualified.
It's great.
You can claim that on your tax return, and then you can qualify for maybe the American Opportunity Tax Credit or the Lifetime Learning Tax Credit or an education, just like an education deduction. So like, and everybody gets mailed a form, so like you should have it, or like you can find it on the web. I know, like it didn't get mailed to me, but I found it online and I just claimed it and I got a big credit because of that. And that's another one people can take advantage of, a huge one. So those two I think are the big ones, but also the stimulus checks. Make sure to tell them you didn't get your stimulus check by filing by yourself. That's potential money you're losing out on. So these are all factors that go into it.
Great. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you for that. They're so important and everyone definitely needs to hear it. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are about taxes?
Wow.
or even like people that do taxes? Like I want to hear both.
Okay. Don't even get me started on this. I have an entire doctorate essay to say about all the wow. Okay. So the most infuriating tax misconception there is that people think that, like, some people think if you make more income or like if your salary rises, you'll be taxed more. And so in the end, you will have less income. Like, so basically, like, here's a conversation. Like, let's say there's like Bob and Annie and they're like in a workplace together. Bob is like, hey, Annie, I'm going to get a promotion and they're going to give me like $10,000 extra a year. And Annie's like, don't do that, because if you do that, you'll be placed in a higher tax bracket, which means you'll be taxed higher, which means in the end, you'll actually have less money. Wrong. That does not happen. Like, it's because there's a simple reason this doesn't happen. And it's called a progressive tax code, right? The higher your income rises, your tax rate rises, true. But the percentage you're taxed at is only applicable to that specific number. So like, here's a big example. Like, let's say I get taxed at 10% when I make $10, but I get taxed at 15% when I make $15. So you would think, like, I make $10 and then I suddenly make 15. So now I'm taxed from 10 to 15. Like, wow, my tax suddenly goes up. Not true. Because if I were to make $10 but go up to 15, my first $10 would be taxed at 10%. And then my additional $5 will be taxed at 15%. So basically your income isn't going to get taxed at the highest bracket automatically.
Yeah.
The proportion of the income is going to get taxed at the higher percentages. So it's mathematically impossible for you to have less money by getting a raise. Like, never happens, but a lot of people forego raises and like salary increases, salary hikes up because they think they're going to get taxed higher. So infuriating. But another big tax misconception is that a refund is you're getting money from the government or it's free money or whatever like benefit it is, because it's not, right? A tax refund, strictly speaking, it's just an interest-free loan you granted to the government or money you're basically overpaying. So people seem to think like this is a really common thing in the VITA program. Like people come and they're like, well, I got $2,000 last year, now I'm getting 1,000. Like, what's happening? Where's my money? Like, I just want my money. People don't realize like the reason you're getting what a refund is, like you have a certain amount of tax liability, but like your employers are smart and they don't want you to like make a surprise payment on tax day. So like they hold back a certain percentage of your income every time you receive a paycheck, right? And then at the end, they compile all of that into a giant pile of money. And then when your taxes are due, they send that instead of charging you. But here's the thing, like that's never that accurate, right? So like is a lot of times you overpay on accident, and the overpaid amount is what you get back, which is a refund. So like you're not getting money like from the government, or it's not free money, it's your money. And the thing about it is that it's not just like I'm getting money, like that's cool. You know how when you loan money to someone, you expect interest and you expect more money back in the end. Well, when you overpay, that money goes towards the government, and the government uses that money to fund your infrastructure and projects and whatever it is, and they give you back the same amount of money. So you're basically granting them a loan without any interest. So like, so big misconception there.
Well, those are great misconceptions. I did not expect you to pop off like that. That's great. And people need
Very, yeah, I get a little passionate just because like people say it so adamantly, you know, they're like, well, if you get a raise, you're definitely gonna get higher. Like, how, like, are you so sure about that? Like, maybe it's time to rethink or reconsider, you know, maybe not be too adamant.
Yeah. So you're accounting. What are you planning to do like after school with that?
Well, honestly, like I'm not too much of a definite person in terms of like my future plans. If anything, I'd like to get into government to support public works and service projects. So like if I could do VITA as a career, like I would love to do that. It's so fun. It's unfortunate that it's unpaid, but it's also fortunate because like I like giving free service. But what I want to do is just use technical knowledge to help people and make things more accessible. So like my interests are like the small business administration, the unemployment agency, small free tax preparation for people. So I would really like to get into that type of nonprofit government agency. So that's what I'm planning on. But honestly, in this economy, I'll take any job, you know. No job is below me, so I'll take any job. It's totally okay, right?
Yeah. So what made you, because these two things are drilled in our heads, what made you go to taxes over audit, or you just knew right away?
Well, see,
You better roast audit.
see, I have an audit internship at this like accounting firm in Providence. So like I like on paper, like I'll say I'm in audit. Like on my LinkedIn, I say like I want to go into audit, which is like true because I'm also interested in like Securities and Exchange Commission and like other type of like forensic, which is like very auditing oriented. But I chose taxes, or like I'm interested in taxes at the moment because I think it has more of a, like an interpersonal aspect with people. Like auditing is like if you're getting into an auditing job, you're most likely going to audit companies and like, you know, high like status, let's just say, and like that's not really what I want to do. I'm more interested in like the local grassroots type job, and I think taxes is something that's more applicable to our daily lives as opposed to something like auditing, which is like a big corporation, like a big like incident.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I wanted to choose it. It's more interpersonal.
Work.
Yeah.
Love it. That's really cool. And it's weird too because when I was in TD, I went from fashion to accounting. Whole story. And I was convinced because of, the Big Four. And URI is so adamant about pushing their accounting students to go Big Four. Do
Yeah.
you know why that is?
Well, I guess it's marketing, but it's also the kind of like notion of like people want a prestigious job, like, and nothing is going to get more prestigious than PwC or EY or Deloitte or KPMG. So like, I think that definitely incentivizes them to go into it. But if any accounting student here is watching, it's totally okay to not going to Big Four.
Yes.
Totally okay. But people, some people are really adamant that, like, they're like Big Four or bust, like nothing else. Like, gotta get one graduation, gotta get a CPA. Like right after graduation, they're completely fixated. Like they will not take anything else for an option. Like you're setting yourself up for like some disappointment because like, I mean, what, like, do you think all of your life's problems are just going to be solved when you go into like Big Four? Like, no,
you're going to get more. You're going to
you're going to work a ton of hours and be stressed probably. And I mean, I'm sure it might be fulfilling for people, but like there's massive downsides to any industry, and Big Four also applies. So like you got to go into it knowing that like you're built to handle that, And I think that's something people that just don't know. Like they're just, all they want is that like Big Four cloud. Like they just really don't. They just don't like even want to see the forward like side of like what could happen in the future. It's just they want the Big Four, nothing else. Like I don't like that way of thinking. So
Yeah.
they're too dogmatic. Yeah.
It's like with any career, you have to have an open mind. Like
right.
You have to have backup plans. Like if you don't pass your CPA the first time, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. I mean, and then you have a full-time job. Like, how are you going to study for it? Like, how are you going to fund yourself? Like,
do it again. Like,
yeah, it gets complicated. Like, life gets complicated. Like, and no one's just going to have free time to just lay around and just go on like Becker and just study CPA all day. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say. But you point out a really interesting topic because, like, I definitely think like accounting students really need to like reconsider more, like, or be more like open about other industries too, because like the way it is, like public accounting has just completely dominated the field, which is perfectly fine because it's big, but like accounting students really need to consider like there's other outlets too, and the amount of like demoralization people face when they get rejected from like a Big Four is like really like kind of heartbreaking, because like there is so much potential in these people, and like the fact that they're putting all of their eggs in this one Big Four basket, like, I mean, it's such a waste of potential and their talent. Like they have talent for other things like government and industry, like consulting, like there's a lot of to go into. So why be fixated on the one thing if you get rejected? Let's move on.
Right.
Yeah.
So right. Yeah, absolutely. And like if you do go Big Four, like good for you. Like right as of right now, that's the path that I'm heading towards. But if I veer right or left, technically, then I veer off. Then
Sure.
like there's so much to do with accounting. Like it's one of those careers that you don't got to worry about.
Yeah.
Here it's a security. It's great, which is why over the pandemic it's like I'm glad I chose this major when there's so many other majors that are freaking out because they can't find jobs after college.
Right? Like we have the privilege of at least knowing we'll get a job after graduation. That's a luxury for a lot of college students. Like we should be grateful of that to begin with.
Absolutely. Love that. And speaking of like businesses, do you want to talk a little bit about your service that you started, and kind of what got you into it? And I know I highlighted it at the beginning a little bit of this episode, but if you want to get into it, that'd be great.
Of course. So the company's ABC Consulting, and that stands for Applied Business Compliance. And so we're a consulting service that consults everybody on any type of technical stuff about business, usually law, but like there's other stuff like funding and government and whatnot, bureaucracy. So a lot of students, like, they want to start a business, but like they don't know how to do it. Like they don't know how to register a business or hire employees or pay taxes. We basically help them through that process, and we do it completely free. So what we're doing right now is there's a laboratory business called Stepinski Laboratories, and they basically do like genetic hybrid modifications of plants. Like they breed like a white flower and a red flower to create like a flower with like white and red petals. Like, and basically Leah Stepinski, the founder of that business, didn't know how to like register or hire employees or like business law because she's a bio student. She's not a business student. So like, how are we going to make that accessible? So I thought about that, and I realized we can provide this service. So one thing we're doing is like we registered the business, we are hiring employees. I'm teaching her about like bookkeeping and technical stuff. And we also do like other types of support stuff. So we offer temporary funding. So we're creating a funding campaign for her where we're selling like these plants to the union, and we set that up and we basically make it happen, you know. And other stuff is we create agreements between companies. So there's a company in North Kingstown called Greenhouse Garden Supply, and we're creating an agreement. So like any unused greenhouse materials goes directly to her. And we also are creating an agreement with Save the Bay where any type of trash collected gets sent to Stepinski Laboratories for use, because we use like the tin cans and like the pots and whatnot that's discarded for like growing plants inside them and selling them. So we're really helping them out with their company mission on sustainability. We're also making the business happen and adequately managing it. And that can be done for any business, of course. And like I said, it's completely free, and we don't charge any money because it's meant to be a nonprofit organization. So yeah, it works for any business. So if anyone's interested, they can always contact me. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can they contact you at?
They can just call me at my phone number. I'll just say it right here. Why not? 785-477-9863. They can contact me on LinkedIn. I also have an Instagram, Doug Roosevelt. So there's a lot of outlets you can talk to me on. And I advertise business quite a bit. So, you know, they should probably see it, but no rush. Like that's the great thing about owning a nonprofit. Like there's no overhead cost, so you don't have to like incur any costs. So there's no pressure to like speeding it up or like get more people recruited. Like I sit here and people come to me and I help them, and that's like all it is. Like there's no money involved, which I think is good. It reduces a lot of the pressure. So
True.
That's I think the highlight of the service.
That's awesome. Is there any last minute advice you'd want to give about, you know, college or adulting in general?
Well, I would say like for the people, like if you're not filing your taxes, or if you're not managing your own savings account, or if you're not managing any type of finances, I would tell them to start managing. But another advice I would like to give is that I'm aware that like a lot of people, their parents don't allow them to do it, or like maybe parents can be a little more possessive about people's finances.
Mhm.
And I want to say that like, if that's the case, empower yourself and create your own bank account. You're 18, you're an adult, you have Social Security, you are in the full legal right to create whatever financial document or like thing you can. So if your parents are, you know, being possessive about your finances, or someone's trying to control your money, make it your money. Make your own bank account, manage your finances, like pay off your student debt, like by looking at your own summaries and your own balances, right? Because if you're not going to do that, you're setting yourself up for failure in the future, and you're making your own prosperity like very unsustainable. So get independent. That's the number one advice I would give to anyone.
That's amazing. Yes. Get independent.
Yeah, let's go.
That's awesome. Well, Doug, thank you so much for coming on. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully everyone listening learned a lot as well. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate being on the podcast as well. And
Oh, yeah.
great to have you. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that amazing episode. Doug, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your advice and giving us your amazing insight. I appreciate it so much. And if you guys want to keep following us on our podcast journey, every social media is at the adult algorithm, except for Twitter. It's adult_algorithm. I just re-recorded this twice because I kept rambling about stuff that has nothing to do with the outro at all. But anyways, if you want to keep supporting us on our journey as well, fill out our forms in our bio about highlighting your small business, or if you want to be a guest, please let me know. DM us, comment on our things. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Instagram algorithm. I would definitely take a look at it just so you can keep supporting your small business friends, just like I have, and that would be amazing. And as always, I will see you guys now. I did it again. Alright, take two. And as always, I will see you guys next week to help you grow into your potential. This is Jasmine with the Adult Algorithm signing off. Bye!